Hi, this is the 6 St. Mark's Place in Manhattan, New York. The first floor of this building is now the Barcade Bar and provides vintage video games and supplies. But until 1988, it belonged to the new St. Mark's Bath, one of New York City's most legendary and popular bathhouses. In the beginning, bathhouses were just places where people washed up and enjoyed steamy bath. St. Mark's Bath, for example, was founded in 1906 to serve a heterosexual male clientele. At that time, the bathhouse has dirty facilities and a very dark environment. But in 1977, gay entrepreneur Bruce Mehlman purchased the premises and renovated, reopened it 2 years later as the new St. Mark's Bath. He gave the old place with bright, new equipment and marble material floor, which slowly changed the status of the new St. Mark's Bath. The bath gradually became a place where gays not only enjoyed the bath, but frequent a place to socialize and have sex. Unfortunately, after 11 years of operation, the new St. Mark's Bath closed in May 1988 due to the mass loss of its core audience, white gay men. During the HIV/AIDS pandemic, the staff of the new St. Mark's Bath tried to provide an orderly and sanitary environment by actively promoting safe sex education. However, the HIV/AIDS pandemic placed the bath under the constant pressure from the media, city, and national health authorities, and eventually closed shortly after Mill's death from AIDS. Some gay men feared the closure would herald a return to the old days of sexual repression, where they might lose their safe place to cruise, that would turn urban gay life into a more uncontrollable environment to seek and have sex. Although today, we can only enter the first floor of the building through a middle glass door, the former bathhouse entrance was set on the left side of the building, where you will have passed through thick double metal doors and through a narrow hallway to the commission booth and the locker room, which are dimly lit in red. But after passing through the hallway, you will come to a bright and steamy large public bathroom. During the daily business hours, you can see more than 20 men peering here. You might see some of them sandwiched deep in the hot jacuzzi with thunderous laps in the tiny plunge pool. The walls are printed with the slogan, "Anyone with bodily infections is not allowed," and nobody talks here. To avoid the massive spread of AIDS, anal and oral sex is not allowed in the bath, and the baths are always filled with a large amount of chlorine. But as the author of How to Have Sex in an Epidemic, one approach said, having medically safe sex at the bath is definitely not practical, but this doesn't mean it isn't possible. The moment you step into a bathhouse, you are at risk of disease, but there is much you can do to minimize this risk by adopting what might be called a scientific approach to the bathhouse. After walking up the stairs, you reach the lounge, which is a resting place for people who haven't had sex in the orgy room. Some people are smoking and some are sleeping in the benches. If you need a break, you can also find a cafe. The floor above the third have the same layout, 53 cubicles here under red lights. This is impossible to estimate how many men will be here, many walking around the hallways, some rooms with door open and people inside whispering. Unlike the constant disco music, this place might be filled with a depressing atmosphere. In the description of Philip Weiss, a New York-based writer, the atmosphere is described as, "In my imagining about the bathhouses, the big factor I left out was rejection. My visions had been banderoles, rowdy, scenes of convivial abandon, but the men were constantly being rejected, not chosen, which is why the place was so silent, so thick with longing and dread." Sometimes I could see the clients' desperation in their faces as they stared up from the pillows. When considering more about the situation of gay community in 1970s America, especially for those who did not out of the closet, the reasons for their choice of the bathhouse become apparent. In an interview, Richard Berkowitz explains what the bathhouse meant to the gay community at the time.
First and foremost, it was a refuge for gay men who were not out of the closet. I mean, they would risk their inheritance, they would risk their jobs, they would risk their apartments, their homes, their livelihoods. So the bathhouses provided a level of privacy that no other places did.
Nothing is left here now but the air conditioner outside and the facilities of the elevator. In what used to be St. Mark's Bath, the design of the roof also became the reason for people to accumulate here.
The thing that was also unique about the St. Mark's Baths is that it had a rooftop. I mean, all the bathhouses, you didn't know if it was night or day. There were no windows that weren't painted black. It was a complete disconnect from the outside world, which actually heightened the sense of eroticism of being there. I mean, it's not just beautiful naked men walking around while people are moaning and coming and, spanking. And I mean, all the sounds you can imagine of sex are all around you. And the fact that most of the cubicles didn't have roofs, the sound just emanated everywhere. And so, I mean, just the soundtrack, could make some people orgasm.
The building of the 6 St. Mark's Place stand, and the new St. Mark's Bath, likewise, remain in the cultural memory of the queer. The argument about AIDS focuses not only on the unsafe sex, but also on the private public spaces where the gay community gathers. Reflecting on the connection between public health and architectural form, critical design for the space should never cease.